Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the webinar about how sustainable typesetting benefits publishers, co-hosted by Westchester Publishing Services and 2K Denmark Typographic Design. My name is Nicole Tomasi, and I'm the Marketing and Conference Manager here for Westchester Publishing Services. And before we get things fully underway, I just want to let you know that your microphones are going to be muted during the discussion. If you have questions for our panelists at any time, you can drop those into the Q&A box. That'll be at the lower part of your control bar, and we will get to those later in the session. So since we have a short time frame, I'm going to introduce quickly our host for today's webinar, Klaus Kroh, who's the Chief Executive Officer of 2K Denmark, and Tyler M. Carey, who's the Chief Revenue Officer here at Westchester, and he will begin the discussion.
Thanks, Nicole. So for a little bit of background about Westchester, we're a U.S. employee-owned company. We've been in business for over 50 years, and we have offices here in the U.S., in the U.K., and in India. We support over 600 publishers globally on over 24,000 publications annually, including editorial, production, and digital conversion services. And we also even go farther upstream with content development for our educational partners. And I'm excited to introduce our partner, Klaus Kroh.
Well, thank you very much, Tyler and Nicole. Yes, my name is Klaus Krog. I have run the 2K Denmark company. We are a design company turned typesetters, turned typeface designers, and we do some content developments as well. We sort of put everything together into the sustainable typesetting. We've experienced how you get most readability on a square inch. So why not use it to achieve two things, both reduce the number of pages and at the same time create more readability. Yes, it turned out to be sustainable typesetting, and we're extremely happy now to work together with Westchester Publishing Services because they have so much more experience and volume to solve all of the problems in the creating of pages for printing.
Excellent. Thank you, Klaus. And so from a real high level, what is sustainable typesetting? And so if we start to look at the next slide, we'll see that there's a process here, which Klaus will go into greater detail on as we go along. But we're excited about this exclusive partnership where we can work with 2K Denmark's proprietary fonts and their custom design process to make better use of page space, which basically lets us create less pages for a book with improved readability. And as you can see here, there's a whole extensive amount of design that went into building these proprietary fonts, not just to squeeze more type onto a page and do kind of, shrinking fonts or widening margins, kind of some of the older tricks of the trade. This is intentionally done to create a great reading experience while also helping you minimize your paper and production costs. And so the pain points that we're trying to help address are profitability. If you don't have to spend quite as much to manufacture a book, and that in turn means less shipping costs, less storage space, there's certainly a financial benefit here. There's also a benefit for the reader, whereas we'll see with the pages the class will be showing, makes for a much better reading experience to begin with before we even start talking about some of the scenarios like large print and other areas where it adds even more value. But there's also a true sustainability impact here that can easily be quantified to look at how if a book uses less paper, is a thinner book, is a lighter book, there are going to be a lot of benefits here that aren't trade-offs, they're benefits. So Klaus, I'll pass it to you to educate us and show some options as to how this will help our clients.
Well, everybody knows that it's difficult to run a publishing business, and it's not been easier these last years. You have a whole lot of price increases. Paper has, as you see on the graphics, had a severe price raise, and it continues, it seems. Also, transportation has been much more expensive. That means that the calculation of a book, the production line costs have risen much more than the prices of books. And that's obvious because the the price market, sort of the price point of books are on a critical level. We have made some research telling us that 60% of the books returned to the shelf in bookstores are returned on account of price. So it's a difficult thing. There's not a lot room to maximize the prices and thereby creating a better business. And next slide, please. Very good. Yeah. So how do you create that profitability? Well, by fewer pages and a higher readability. It's obvious that and thereby we've through our experience and through the books already produced, we see that these two books on the right of the screen are the same content exactly, only it's 30% less pages, and we also triggered the grammar of the page a little bit. But I can tell you that where the bottom one book sort of have a 2.1 kilo CO2 emission, the top one only has 400 gram, so you are while you're creating a much more profitable book production, you are also saving the environment for CO2 emissions at the same time.
So, Klaus, if I could interject, the process here with the fonts and the design that are proprietary to the 2K Denmark approach to sustainable typesetting, those account for trimming the page counts. In this case, you even did better than your usual average. You went to 30% instead of 20%. But to your point, there's other factors here where this can be part of a larger strategy as well, that can add other savings, whether it's paper and other pieces, as we'll see in a moment, right?
Yes, by all means.
Very good.
But this wouldn't. So everybody can create a book with lesser pages by ruining the readability. But that's not the case here. If on the next slide, please. We are working together with the Cambridge University and trying to create more readable books. We do that by all their with the help of all their research and their electronic measurements of readability and stuff. But what we both found is that over the last 10 years, your readers have been requesting a higher and higher type size. And nobody can really explain that fact, but it might be because a lot of the reading has turned into to digital media where you can decide the type size yourself, and maybe got used to a bigger typeface. It's difficult because a bigger typeface usually means that you have a lot more pages. You probably all experienced in what happens when you go from your general trade book and then turn it into a large print book. Well, obviously, you get a lot more pages. But the sustainable typesetting system does three things at the same time. We reduce the number of pages, we enhance the readability, and thereby we also save CO2 emissions. Obviously, the saving of we can only achieve this by the way we design typefaces. Next slide, please. And it's down to readability, and I've just showed you here some of the things, or you might not know, but 2K Denmark is very big in Bibles, so we do a lot of Bible typefaces, and we do a lot of Bible typesetting as well. And for a Bible, you want to create the highest readability on the square inch. You want to make sure that the Bible is not more heavy. These 4,500,000 digits can be pressed into as few pages as possible without losing the readability, because unreadable books, nobody can, it's not worth your effort. And so to create these readable books, if you look at, by the way, at this graphics down below, you can see a typeface, the gray one, that's the same type size as the white one. only, and it builds approximately the same amount of on a page. Only the white one looks so much bigger than the other one, and then and the one on the left, the gray, is a Garamond, and a Garamond and that sort of typeface is the most used in your trade books at the moment. If you go and look at in a bookstore, look at the books. They are all typeset more or less with a typeface like that. It's much easier to see on the next slide, because here you've got exactly the same text. On the left side, it's Garamond. On the right side, it's Sustainable Serve. And this shows you, I mean, it's so much easier to read on the right side. It's also a question on how you distribute white space. There are 5 different kinds of white space on a text page. That's the white space inside the letters. We take care of that when we design the types. That's the white space in between the letters. There's the word spacing, and there's the leading, and that's all the sort of the internal typography, and that's the margins. And those 5 areas of white space are so important that you administer them to create the highest readability. And so that's what we do. That's inside. So the whole system of sustainable typesetting is this distribution of white space with types that are designed to create exactly what we're trying to achieve: fewer pages, higher readability.
So again, class, this is not just substituting a proprietary font, it's also the design choices and things. And oh, perfect timing. Here's a great example you can talk to of how those design choices helped affect things, right?
Yes, indeed, yes. Well, we've done several things here. We've over a few years worked together with Island Press, now part of Princeton University Press, I understand, to achieve this. So we've tested out on several titles, and here you can see the text marked up with green is actually the extra text we put on the page. It's 25%, not 20%. I can see that now. We could even go further. So we could, if it's important, we can on some books even say 50% of the page count, and not intimidating the readability. We can keep the readability higher than in the original books. And so you might be shaking your heads now and saying, well, that's probably not possible. Well, it is, and we would be extremely happy to show you. So if you've got a trouble book on 500 pages, you'd much rather print on 400 pages rather than 500 pages, I'm sure we can help you. We can do that. But often, if you look at design, if you look at saving pages, well, the important thing is that you take your publication and look at it, and place it in templates, and make sure that you present the same quality of design and typesetting for your customers. I'm sure you'll gain a lot by doing that. There's been a lot of talk about large print pages as well. Next slide, please. And with sustainable typesetting, we can actually offer you a large print on the exact same number of pages as your original trade book. So the same number of pages, just by executing the design using the special designed fonts, and administering the 5 different white space areas, we can create large print books at the same number of pages as your trade books.
And so, Klaus, I know that's been a barrier to entry for many publishers of having an alternate large print edition because of the cost of in many cases having such a large book. So I mean, in this case, it's something where again we can stay at or a similar number of pages, similar trim. We're not tricking it out by going to an 8.5 by 11 or something, right?
No, we're not cheating that way. No, it's the same trim size and indeed the same number of pages. And I mean, don't take my word for it. Let's help you show it on one of your books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, next slide.
Yes, 80% of all emissions that you save is decision taking in the design process. We've heard from publishers, well, saving 20% we can easily do. We could go 20% lower in gram weight on the paper, and of course you can, and you will save paper. But that's the paper and transportation. But that's the only thing you'll save if you look at sustainable typesetting. You will save 20% less paper as well. You will use 20% less paper as well, but you will also save 20% in printing, because the number of printed pages obviously also is a factor. You print only 80% of the time than the full book, and in transportation and in storage and in shipment and so on and so forth. Obviously, if you want to be best in class, you do both of these things and you save 40% of your paper. There's a limit to it, and I know there is. And everybody would say, well, I need my books to be thick because otherwise I can't sell it to the price that I want to have for the books. And that's partly true, at least. I sort of 75% of your books are probably sold through websites like Amazon and other places. And that the thickness of the book is really not an issue, because you can't get the feeling of the book. And a lot of people nowadays also want to keep the book and travel with it and so on. So slimmer, readable books are often more popular than thick, unreadable ones. And that's a design decision as well, obviously. When you want to see a definition of large print or whatever, you often go to BIC, the British Institute from the publishing industry, and we are registered there as well with a full description. I took this illustration to show you, because you can see we are just 2 numbers over FSC paper, and that in itself sort of has you can see that we are valued as deliverers of something that are relevant in when you talk sustainable production as well.
So this is excellent, class. Thanks so much for giving us an overview. I know we've got some questions that were submitted in advance that we're going to cover as well. Certainly, if any other that are easy for us to, kind of verbally answer right now come up that we can pop into the Q&A, we'll address those as well. From real high level, I mean, the benefits of sustainable typesetting, we're helping reduce your emissions. We're helping improve readability, as you can see from the examples that Klaus showed. And the profitability piece, we're helping you trim your costs on all stages of the manufacturing process. It's a book with less paper, it's a thinner book, it's a lighter book, with the benefits that kind of play throughout the entire manufacturing and distribution process, when you're looking at your book's life cycle. Nicole, do you want to move to the next slide? So great. We'd love to hear more about the things that are on your mind. Some questions that we'd gotten in advance that I could start with, Klaus. Some publishers have asked about what's the applicability to their list. So there are publishers who are on today who have a bespoke design for every book. There are some who have bespoke designs for a portion of their list and then templates for other portions of their list. And there's a couple of other scenarios that I'll play out related to backlist and large print separately. But for frontlist titles, how does the process typically work when we're talking to a publisher about how we can take a title that especially one that might have a longer page count, and work with them to use the design and the fonts that are part of this process to help them achieve their goals for the specific title at hand?
Well, obviously, publishing has always been dynamic. And publishing houses are all different. I've been employed by a few, and they've all of them had different ideologies and what you want to present. I would say that with any guess, at least 50% of books published would have a benefit of being part of a series. And if books are part of a series, obviously you could design from a template, all of them in the same design, giving also that design a branding effect on what you do. when we talk about branding effects, obviously the logo that you saw for the sustainable typesetting is also a part of the deal. So you can use that in marketing. But in publishing, you also have titles where you want to individual design, choose another typeface. And those books are often not the very heavy ones, the big ones. It taking one step at a time, choosing, looking at your publication, saying, well, these books would actually benefit of being a part of a series, and then use a serial design with using the sustainable typesetting methods.
Mhm.
Others you will treat individually. But also, if you have very, very heavy books, well, it's obvious that your economy i- is it's a big factor of this, and saving 20% of your total production line costs will really might be the difference between surviving and doing well, and then struggling on the economy side.
Yeah.
But one step at a time, and take the low-hanging fruit first.
Yeah. So I mean, as we've had some discussions over the past weeks with some of our clients about this, yeah, I mean, there's the publishers who have a templated series. Well, I mean, this is a great fit, right? Because we can set up a design, we can use the proprietary fonts, and that's kind of a reusable approach that Westchester can handle for typesetting the book and producing the book. Whether it's one that we're typesetting only, or if we're also editing and typesetting it, we can apply that process. The other piece that we start to see, though, is there are the folks who, yeah, if you're a publisher of that giant 800-page romantasy book that you're going to take a gamble on acquiring, this is a way to take that 800-page book and shrink it, 20+% to make it a shorter page count, and therefore less expensive at many stages throughout the manufacturing process. So I mean, there's those isolated cases, and there's also the templated cases. We also have scenarios that have come up that people asked about regarding large print, which you talked about quite a bit. What about backlist? If, let's say, somebody has a title that they only have physical copies of, and they would need scanned, and they probably have to retypeset it anyways if they're going to re-release the book in a new edition. Talk a little bit about kind of how those kind of scenarios could play out if publishers are looking at ways to kind of mine their backlist and re-release books.
Sure. We have already been well, the gold in the cellar, we used to call it here, the backlist. You really have titles that will sell and needs a reprint. Often, when you look at it, you would go and get your own PDF, the old PDF files, and then send it to the printer and do a simple reprint from PDFs. Well, in very many cases, the retypesetting will cost you less than the 20% you will save on your production line costs. So you'll actually have a more reasonable deal in retypesetting the books instead of just reprinting them, because you would achieve then using less paper, and you will renew them. They will be new books when you look at them, and create maybe a bigger market that way. So do consider when you have things to be reprinted. And I'm sure from an economical point of view, you will find, recalculating this, that the retypesetting would be the best option.
Yeah. Okay. Along those lines, we have a couple questions about the fonts themselves, some of which we'll follow up with because they're a little bit more of a detailed conversation. But one that's probably a low-hanging fruit question for you, Klaus, is how does this approach of using the proprietary fonts that you've developed plus the designs, how does this compare to using compressed fonts if a publisher were to just kind of do a swap for a compressed font?
Oh, Oh, yes, but I said that the publishing industry is dynamic, and you will find that these 500 years we've been using removable fonts. Type designers have struggled to create something that was pleasing that was a part of the stylistic period. So there's Renaissance fonts, there's Baroque fonts, and so on. So through this whole process, it has been refined, the design of the typefaces. Sometimes it's more important to be modern or provoking. Sometimes it's a real tool that you use to read your books. We try to balance that so that we don't create fonts that are only displaying some new designs and stuff. We always keep the traditional values of a well-designed font, and the traditional values is the biggest one is readability and durability. So looking at how is this going to be produced? Okay, you can. We made fonts, and the sustainable serif is a very good choice. We have quite a few customers, a lot actually, that after looking at what we can present in the standard typefaces, acquire a proprietary font themselves. HarperCollins Christian have not bought one, but 56 of them. HarperCollins International have bought us that series, and there are a lot more publishing houses that acquire a font that are their proprietary font and are sort of, when you look at a page, obviously you read it. When you hear me talking, you hear the words I'm saying, but you also hear it by my voice. You can compare the type design with the sound of the voice. So suddenly you would have your own voice as a publishing house having your own proprietary font. And that's what
Yeah.
we can do for you. So it'll have all the qualities that's needed to become a sustainable typesetting font, but it'll also have the design that's typical
Yeah.
of your publishing house. And talk with Tyler, and we can have a meeting and we can talk about the possibilities.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a few, and yeah, there are some pretty specific questions that have come in that, yeah, we're not sidestepping, but they could easily be a half an hour discussion. So we don't want to, kind of do that to everybody right now. But there's a few questions that came in here that are pretty specific questions about those kinds of things. I will say that in discussions with publishers that have attempted to do this with font choices and such alone, we've seen some publishers very successfully strike a signature from a book doing that, which is laudable. But we've also seen the opportunity here when you're talking about 20% on a book, that could be, 4 or 5, 6 signatures, depending on the length of the book using this approach, where it's the font and the design choices that are made. So certainly worth looking at. We got I've got one canned question I'll throw at you if we've got time after this one. We got one other incoming question that I think is a good one, Klaus, because it points to the flexibility of this. We have somebody asking about a templated series. It's 5 volumes, 700 pages each, big scholarly work with a lot of footnotes, some numbered, some lettered, margin notes. This is not a one size fits all tool where everything's got to look the same, right, Klaus? I mean, if somebody has something specific and there's academic citations and such, there's ways to benefit from this on those types of books as well, right?
Yes, by all means.
Mhm.
What we find is that the more complicated the typesetting is, the more space you can actually gain by the experience of typesetting Bibles and designing Bibles. There's a lot of cross-reference and then footnotes and stuff in that as well. Westchester have done a lot of academic
Mhm.
typesetting, and what I find is the most complicated of the books are the ones you can save the most. 50% sometimes, maybe. Depends, obviously, but again, giving a chance to prove it, showing you a few pages of what you need to dramatically cut down in page count. Well, that's the only way to go. And I don't think you can find anything too complicated that there isn't a possibility to create both more readable books, but on fewer pages. I'm sure we can.
Yeah. And I'll even answer the other canned question we had just quickly by giving a quick plug, because I know we're at time, that you've created the badge for sustainable typesetting, which can be put on books on the cover, or the interior of a book that has been used, produced using this model. I think certainly for looking at who a number of the publishers are that are on this call, I think that aligns very closely with many of their missions. So certainly that's a consideration here too, that it comes with part of the package that you can kind of brand this, because there are consumers where where that's a big draw and a big benefit. I think Klaus and I will wrap up and let Nicole kind of bring us to a close, if that's all right.
Thank you, Tyler, and thank you, Klaus, for providing an overview about sustainable typesetting and how it can help publishers achieve a better readability for their customers, as well as hit sustainability goals that are becoming more legislated by the minute. We will be sending around a link to this video in the coming week. As you're exiting out of today's session, if you could just please provide your feedback using the 2-question survey that'll come up on your screen. That would be very helpful to me. And finally, if you do have more questions as you kind of go through all the information that was shared today and want to discuss how you could learn more about this and potentially start using it for projects that you have, please reach out to us, and we can get that discussion going with you about the ways you can use sustainable typesetting fonts. So with that, I will thank you very much for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.